welcome to the second episode of the College and Family Engagement Podcast, where we explore the relationship between families and colleges. This series is specifically looking at the families and fictive kin of first generation students in higher education institutions. What is that relationship? So we thank you for joining us. I am Marcus Wright, and we have the incredible Gavin Henry. How you doing over there?
I'm doing great, Marcus. Thank you again.
All right, all right. So, Gavin, you told me I got to be more conversational. You said I'm too interviewing. What are you talking about, man?
I so for those that watched our last episode,
I'm just messing with you. I'm
oh,
just
okay,
messing.
okay. See, that's a good start.
Oh,
Have the conversation.
all right. All right. Well, let me get to it and introduce our wonderful guest for this episode, Dr. Heather D. Wathington. Her background is a blend of education, research, and philanthropy focused on students from underserved communities. She currently serves as CEO of iMentor, a national leader in one-to-one mentoring that builds long-term personal relationships to help students, largely first-generation college students from under-resourced communities, more equitably access and navigate a path through post-secondary education and careers. Prior to joining iMentor in 2021, Dr. Wathington served as the 18th president of the historic Girard College woo woo, in Philadelphia, PA, and the CEO at See Forever Foundation and the Maya Angelou Schools in Washington, D.C. Good doctor, how you doing?
Oh, well, how are you?
We're doing great. We're doing great. So we're gonna get right to it. Gavin's gonna kick us off with some questions, and then let's get to it.
Awesome. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much for having me here. So I'm excited to begin our conversation.
Yeah, so Heather, I just wanted to start off by acknowledging a little bit about your background. So I noticed that you have a diverse background from Penn to Michigan to Girard to all of these different types of institutions. And I think that, especially in my experience with higher education, just for context, I'm from South of Jersey. I went to school in South of Jersey. I went to Rutgers University, Camden. And there was a big jump, right, from Rutgers Camden to an Ivy League to Penn, this big institution. And when we talk about mentors, the first time Marcus and I even interacted was by faith, right? Was by luck. My mom just so happened to be his one of his sister's friends growing up. And I emailed Marcus and I said, "Hey Marcus, please uh I forget exactly what our conversation was just understanding, am I fit for this university? Am I ready for Penn?" And I think that that's a lot of things that we don't talk about, right? So I just wanted to know how your experience, jumping from different types of institutions led you to uh, the way that you prepare and support students now to prepare, to prepare them. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say drawing from my own experience, I had some good experiences with higher education. I've been on a lot of different campuses, and some lacking ones. And I would say often what made it hard would be times where I felt like I didn't fit or I didn't belong, or I had a very, very difficult time adapting to whatever the campus milieu was. I actually started a master's program, left that program the end of the semester to actually start at Penn, where I ultimately earned my master's in higher ed. But much of it had to do with fit and what I wanted to learn and where I was in my trajectory, and actually where the institution was and the program that they were offering. And so I think for me, thinking about other students, I think about fit very much. And what are the things that help you to feel like you belong, right? Because sometimes it's not a matter of just the institution and just the context that it has there. Do you see other people who look like you? Do you see other people who have the same values as you? Do you have folks who are interested and passionate about those same things? And how does that reflect back, and how is that interpreted by a student? And I think for first generation students in particular, of which I was, there is a real feeling of, do I belong in this place? And um, they often need translators and people to help them. I remember when I first started my first college, I was looking for other young Black women like me, right? Like to help me decide, do I actually belong on this campus? And I think there were many people who helped me adjust to that environment, and those experiences, I think, set me up to be successful. And so I want to see so much of that for our students and the students that we work with at high schools, colleges, and certainly the ones we serve with iMentor.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said a lot of important things and things that resonated well with me, especially because I went through the same thing, right? Like I said, going from Rutgers Camden to the University of Pennsylvania, it was a big it was a culture shock, a big shift in everything that I knew. And my reality is, in my cohort in higher education, I'm the only Black man. Right?
Mhm.
So I didn't really understand where I fit, right? Did I fit in with, this group or that group, or where who am I? What am I? And I think my thing was I relied a lot on my professors, right? So in the first time in my entire educational career, I had three black male professors in 1 year. Marcus Wright, Dr. Leland, and Damani White Lewis, right? I and I consider them all mentors, and without them, I don't know if I could have finished my program, right? Because I was second guessing myself every single day. I'm the only commuter. I don't live in in Philly, and it was a hard adjustment. So I think that the your influence as a professor, right? It's important, right? And especially this goes into this thing goes into my second point, and our second question about how your time as a professor kind of influenced you into this leadership position beyond the classroom.
Absolutely. I would say as a professor, I went in very much thinking, how do I want to shape this class, right? Like, what do I want students to know, think, and feel throughout this class and throughout this experience, and what I want them to leave with, right? And those might be different things, but ultimately, I think it was very focused on knowing, thinking, and feeling, and sort of what that would be for a student. Um, I think that is probably one of the guiding things that I've taken with me in my leadership roles in terms of thinking about students, particularly in K-12, what we want them to know, think, and feel. What skills do we want them to develop? What habits are really, really, really important? I think about at Maya Angelou, we very much wanted students to think about and have lots of examples that we ask staff to model to help young people think about how they might regulate their emotions, which is a particular skill that we wanted our students to grow and build competencies in. So I think I took to leadership, how is it that I can shape the context and shape the environment so that students can grow and develop in that place in the way in which they need to? And I think that's been a bit of where when I went to Girard, it was thinking I have first through 12th grade and it's a boarding school environment. So I have a little bit more time with students. How do I shape this milieu so that we understand what it is we want, and how do I engage staff in that, right? I think that's been the huge piece of like really very different from being a professor, right? Because you're kind of you can be a one person show in your classroom, but when you're leading, you're also trying to build engagement. You're also trying to make sure that parents and families and the staff that you have are on the same page and all working towards the same goal. And being explicit about those goals, being clear about those goals, and then setting out a roadmap and a strategy that everyone can see for how we get there to best be able to support the context that we want for students to be able to shape them, right? To have all the things that we want. I think at iMentor, I think we're still thinking about those same things now in terms of mentoring relationships. What do students still need to know, and how can that mentor be of utmost support in helping that student build both competency, skill, and know-how around whatever it is that that student wants to do.
You said something about time,
Mhm.
right? And I think that that's something that I often question, right? And I think that I mentor in the work that you've done at Girard College and all of your stops in your professional journey. Time is the most important thing, right? Because I think that especially when we talk about education, we often get caught up in this idea where elementary school, middle school, formative years, right? But we don't really hone the skills, right? So the idea of having a mentor may not be pushed until you're later in high school, until you know what's going on. And I guess my question, and this is kind of a floating thought, so bear with me, but do you think that working with kids and having a mentor in the first grade and maybe having that same mentor all the way through 12th grade, how much of a difference does that make in students, right?
Mm.
Because I would assume that it makes a huge difference. Then you know somebody for maybe you meet them your freshman year and they become your mentor your sophomore year, so you only know them for a year or 9 months or whatever it is. So would you be able to speak on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I think I think at least what I've learned from about mentoring, both personally and sort of in this role, is that I think people need mentors for different times and different contexts, right? So depending on like that time variable that you spoke about is just really, really critical. You might need a peer mentor when you're in college, somebody to show you the ropes to get from sophomore to junior year. Then it might make sense for you to have a professional mentor. And by that, I mean like an adult that has a job that's actually able to open up their network to you and might be able to support you in gaining an internship as you are thinking specifically about a career. And so I think it is the timing that matters, but also different mentors at different times to guide a young person in the direction that they want to go. With that said, iMentor does believe in long-term mentoring. So we actually ask our mentors to commit for 4 years. So there's a bunch of things that happen, right, between 11th grade and the first 2 years of that student's post-secondary journey. And many of our mentors stay on with young people for even longer, of which we're super thrilled and excited that they do. But it is that sustained relationship that makes a difference. And we know from research that being able to have a fair amount of time with that mentor to help you, that gets to know you, you get to know them. There's trust that is a part of that relationship. There's connection, there's belief, there's confidence. There are a bunch of things that develop over time when you have a mentor for a sustained period. So I would love to see it. I know there are some schools that have models where mentors start with young people very young and continue with them over the course of their high school trajectory. We try to bridge that high school and that college piece, but the time variable we know is just critical to helping that student achieve their goals.
So I want to focus in a little bit more on iMentor, and if you could just kind of talk about your time there, how it's been since you joined. You joined in 2021, so that was the whole pandemic, the height of the pandemic, and all that. So, kind of how was it navigating through that and really fostering this organization that's so built on relationships?
Sure. Happy to. I'll take a step back and explain a little bit for our listeners what iMentor does so they're on the same page with us. I would say what's impressive about iMentor and what drew me to the organization was the fact that the organization has been able to take the power of an individual relationship, one mentor and one mentee, and scale it. And so iMentor started in 1999 and has created about 42,000 mentoring relationships. And so that's students in New York City, Chicago, Baltimore, the Bay Area, and dozens of our partner communities across the country, who've all who've benefited from the unique support of their mentor. And so for us, that's 42,000 students who have a caring adult that they deeply trust, and they tell us so in their surveys and in their conversations with us, and that they have a long-term relationship with, that's dedicated to helping that young person identify whatever passions, dreams they have, and hopefully an educational pathway to get them where they're trying to go. And so part of our programming is we ask mentors and mentees to go on a journey together. In our high school program, we match pairs in 11th grade, and the mentor helps them navigate a student's leap from high school into post-secondary together. We say to both the mentor and the mentee that the goal is a post-secondary education. We want our students to get a post-secondary credential. And so we support the pairs with opportunities to learn and grow with each other. We do a fair amount of resources around the vast world of post-secondary education. We partner with schools, and so we really try to be embedded in the communities where we serve. So we work with schools as our primary site. And mentors, we work with them to navigate the challenges of applications in 12th grade once students are ready, right fit, areas of interest, college visits, financial aid, rejections, acceptances, decisions, and then they move into starting that post-secondary journey together. So we're really excited that we get to work with students from post-secondary education and hopefully setting them up for a career and a lifetime of career and financial choices that they're able to make. We kind of set ourselves there because we know that individuals with a bachelor's degree earn 68% more than students with a high school diploma, and they're 24% more likely to be employed, 3.5 times less likely to be impoverished, and 5 times less likely to be in prison. So we know there's really big benefits from that bachelor's degree. So we're often very, very focused on that piece. I would add, we start with 2 beliefs that iMentor: relationships have the power to transform, and that there's unbounded potential in every student. And these are assets that we want our young people to develop for post-secondary success and a career that matters to them. And that mentor helps catalyze that within our young people. They are cheerleaders, they're project managers, they're listeners, they're questioners, they're coaches, but above all, they're champions for the potential of young people. And we rely on our mentors to sort of show up and show out, to be able to support our students, to help them decide to do whatever it is that they want to do.
So that's fantastic. Wonderful organization doing wonderful things. And so, and just kind of to touch on that point again about how is it navigating through like the pandemic years, and how are things a little different now that we're past that? If you could just speak about that a little bit.
Sure. So the pandemic was interesting, right? Because we had pairs that weren't able to meet in person. And so we learned for the first time what it means when pairs actually haven't had that in-person touch point. I think it raised a lot of questions about, could we do completely virtual mentoring? And I think the pandemic helped answer for us that people really crave that in-person connection. So even as students are in college, they still really want those touch points. And even if the relationship is primarily virtual, while a student's in college, the in-person piece of that mentor sort of showing up and actively working with the student on applications face to face, working with the student on financial aid and making through those decisions really does make a difference for the relationship and for students and their outcomes. So I think we made a commitment that we would continue to work on the technology that we use to keep pairs engaged and really build that to be something that works to foster engagement between the pair, um, and double down on really trying to make that experience meaningful because we know it matters. It allows mentors and mentees to chat with each other, and ask each other quick questions. So the technology is vital to connect and engage, but that in-person relationship, and cultivating and building a relationship, there isn't a virtual substitute for that. And so we try to do both, foster sort of
Mhm.
in-person engagement and foster that technological and digital touch points to sustain and grow a relationship between a mentee and a mentor.
Now, Gavin, you had some thoughts about the technology aspect that we were talking about.
While I was while we were talking, right, I came back to the whole idea of iMentor and Apple, right? Like the connection between the 2, and I you kind of answered my thought, but if you could expand, I guess, the process behind that, if well, obviously, I would assume that you know the process of, but just touch on that aspect, and then I have a question about something that you said earlier as well.
Absolutely. Well, iMentor is based in 1999. So, uh, email was the big innovative technological innovation at the time, if you can believe it. So, the primary way that mentors and mentees engage was via email. And that was really quite revolutionary for its time. And so here we are 25 years later, where we decided to build proprietary technology that's very, very focused on the pair and building their relationship. So they can chat, they write to each other weekly on our platform, but they can certainly engage in conversations with much more frequency. We actually also have fabulous staff who are program managers. They work in the schools and they also teach classes about post-secondary education and how to utilize your mentor. So we don't take for granted that students know how or that mentors know how to be mentors. So we have staff people that are fabulous in supporting the pair to talk and engage. And so if a match doesn't seem to be working out, our program manager is right on the spot. If there are challenges that the mentee's having or that the mentor's having, our program managers work to support that relationship. They can also help the pair based on their communication on the platform, introduce some new conversations. If a student, say, is like stalled with deciding where they're going to go to school, they can say to the mentor, John is really struggling with his decision making on this piece. I'm not sure if he's told you, but if the next time you touch base with him, how about you sort of have a conversation with him about his options and what seems and feels right to him. And so we're able to do a little bit of prompting to kind of encourage the relationship in ways that we know and understand that a student might need, since we have staff that see the students on the regular basis, and can also support mentors to be able to support that student. So that's how our tech works, to engage and like propel as opposed to be a substitute for.
Wonderful, and I guess my quicker question, um, how I feel like mental health, positive mental health and positive outcomes in a classroom go hand in hand. And we talk a lot about fit, right? Like fit can mean right school, right mentor. I think it could fall under this umbrella. Have you seen that correlation, right? Like a student is going through something and a mentor may just send a phone call or send a text, because I know from my experience, And I was lucky enough that before I met Marcus, I didn't really have a mentor, but I had my father. And, when you're in college, you don't talk, some people might talk to their parents every day. I for sure didn't talk to my parents every day. And my dad was my mentor, right? So when I was going through something and like he called me out of anywhere, I just had the best week ever, right? And I think that speaks a lot of the importance of mentoring. So can you just speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. Our mentors are incredible. I mean, we wouldn't have anywhere. They're the lifeblood of our program. And so I think about Akina. Akina actually works for iMentor now, but she actually was a mentee in our program and has a dynamic mentor that she calls her sister, named Naomi. And so they grew very, very close, and they were matched during the pandemic. And Akina started out at University of Buffalo. And then when the pandemic hit, she was forced to return back to New York City. She couldn't return back to Buffalo because of different family obligations. So she had to transfer to a CUNY school and she didn't know where to start. And so it was Naomi that jumped in, helped her sort out college applications, transfer, all of that world, to help Akina then step into CUNY. She enrolled at Baruch and graduated with a BA in communications, I think. And they continue to be a really tight pair, but it is an example of how our mentors definitely step into the breach to help our students when they're stuck. I think my own mentee, she had questions about enrolling. And she was like, I just started getting so frustrated. I got so frustrated. And then I thought, wait a minute, I just need to text Heather. She's my person, right? Like she's my person. And so that is part of like why we really like value and see the benefit of it just being a long-term relationship, because in those moments when students are stressed and don't know where to turn, don't know what to do, there's a muscle there that says you've got a person, right? You've got sponsorship, you've got mentorship, you've got someone that's in your corner that can help you solve through whatever challenge you've got on your plate. We've had mentors who have helped with housing, help with registration fees, helped with all host of things, because there's so many challenges and barriers that students have with getting into and persisting in higher ed. And so our mentors are often the people our mentees call to sort of support them to that next step.
So yeah, that's wonderful, and that ties right into the whole fictive kin and just how particularly first generation students may call on um, uh, people that are not biologically related but feel like family members to them. And I think that one of the purposes of this series is really trying to kind of help higher education institutions understand that that is a real thing, and and get a conversation going about how can higher education institutions kind of recognize that more to the benefit of the first generation students. And so if you can kind of talk some more about that, and just in terms of like the mentors and their interactions with the institutions, in any sort of advocacy for the students. How has that gone? Do you feel as though it's usually met with resistance, or do you feel like the mentors find a way to kind of um, complete that advocacy for the students?
Yeah, we definitely work with the mentors to not speak for students, but to help them find their voice, and assert their identity and navigate whatever systems that can feel overwhelming. And so we want them to feel that a steady, affirming presence actually is the thing that you need to be a force for good to help you move forward and figure out what your next challenge might be. And so our in high school, our mentors help students take ownership of that process. And so students take the lead, our mentors support them, helping to build college lists, advise them, complete educations or complete applications, sorry, and then, compare offers, and then touch points during the summer to avoid summer melt. And then when we get into the institutions, we really ask our mentors at that point to help. How can they help? And we offer training on this to help students connect with the environment that they're in and find and use the resources there. How do you maximize campus resources? Don't run from the tutoring center. They're there to support you, right? Don't, if you need help with financial aid, I'll be on the phone, and we can FaceTime and we can talk with the financial aid office, right? Our mentors kind of definitely step in into that gap. So we really ask them to um, help students become more familiar with the systems that are unfamiliar to them by being that steady presence, to help them to figure out what they need to do. Because we know that mentors maybe went to different institutions, so they don't know the specifics of that particular college, but they can be sort of a trusted resource, to say, hey, lean on me and I'll support you during this process. We have recently, in the past year, started working directly with colleges. So we have been working with colleges on how can we support your first gen students and work with you on supporting them. And there's definitely more of a tie that I think our mentors have with the institution. In many cases, they are graduates themselves, or their staff, or their alum. So they have this really powerful existing relationship with the institution, and they're able to stand in the gap, if you will, and help that their mentee navigate the system that they actually know really well. And again, our role is trying to encourage them, like, the system, and the goal is to help the student know the system. And so how can you be that bridge, to really kind of help push them out there to figure out how to utilize that? I know students are at different points, right, and different abilities in their ability to ask for help and to advocate for themselves. And so we, try to remind mentors that students are in different phases, and their ability to be able to do that might be dependent on a nudge from you, or direct advocacy in some cases when it's, a bill that a student can't pay. So I think that we have lots of examples of where our mentors are stepping in to kind of be the step stool that students can sort of stand upon, right, to be able to advocate for themselves.
Heather, I just wanted to jump in really quick
Please
because
do.
um so we're talking a lot about iMentor, but I want to hear a little bit about your mentor, right? Like who who
That was
is
good. That
that
was
was a
really
that
good.
was a good one, right?
I appreciate that. So
I
there's a
mentor,
difference.
your mentor, we mentor.
But
They probably hear about themselves, or I think fairly consistent with what I shared earlier. I've had a few mentors that have mentored me at very strategic phases, right, and very critical phases through my life, and I'm grateful for all of them. I think with each one that mentored me, it made me then value mentorship and then continue to seek it out for the next step, for the next time that I needed support. I would say Sylvia Rotato, she was my mentor in graduate school. Very similar to as Marcus has served for you, Gavin. She taught me everything about research in higher ed. But I think I learned from her how to understand how a student's background, their race, gender, class, identity, and how their former schooling experiences, their neighborhood, their family, how all of those things play into their college experience, right? And how colleges play a major role in shaping that environment. And there's a interaction between the individual and that environment. And so she's been just so instrumental for me in terms of teaching me to be present about sort of context, identity, and how that comes into salience with the college environment. So many of my insights and understandings about higher education itself has come from her. She is brilliant and compelling, and I'm really grateful for her mentorship all throughout graduate school. And even when I started as faculty, I had to deliver, I'll never forget, I had to deliver a speech at the Department of Education on my research. Really, it was like a research presentation. And she saw me walk past. This is, I don't know, probably 10 years after I'd graduated. And she saw me walk past as we're kind of getting ready, and she could see, right? She knows me well enough to know I was nervous. And she left the audience, asked, could she come back to where I was to talk to me? So they let her. And she, in that moment, and I hadn't seen her in a couple years. So I thought, oh, she's come to say hi. No, she had come to coach me up. She was like, here we go. You know this material better than anybody else, right? You know what it is that you need to say. Uh,
Yes.
you sort of situate yourself to be the authority on this in that room with everyone there. And so she just gave me all of the talking points and the coaching and the mental mindset that I needed to go out and do the task that I needed to do. And so I will just always love her for that, because that's someone that knows you, and that can speak life into you right in that moment when you really, really need it. So that's Sylvia. I've had other mentors. John Burkhart goes without saying, who really taught me as I was leaving graduate school about philanthropy and the role of philanthropy. And so it was one of the first things that I did when I graduated, and how I learned from him how philanthropy should be centered on goodwill and in terms of promoting others, and that philanthropy doesn't have all the answers, but it should certainly seed as many innovative things that are happening in the world and in the field to grow solutions to many of our problems. And so he was just super, super thoughtful in that. And then I have one other really powerful Black woman mentor, Jackie, who has been pivotal. She's a CEO of 3 community colleges, and so has definitely helped me in my leadership journey at this stage of my life, where I'm working to lead organizations. So they've all been really powerful stewards and mentors for me.
Yeah, well, they've done a great job. So
They've done a great job.
I
You
didn't know if
answering
Marcus
this.
was gonna say that or if I
Look,
was gonna
you
say that.
answering this question. I'm just like, man, I'm so glad we got her on here.
Right.
She is amazing.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
I think
Um, I was thinking about just, like, if I was like the parent of a college student, and how would I interact with like an iMentor? If I would be like, make sure you get with the iMentor people or whatever. And I'm just thinking, like, how do families, now we're going to the biological
right.
here, how do like the biological families view iMentor and the role that that organization plays with their kids?
Yeah. So while we start working in a high school, we definitely get parental consent. So we start from the very beginning in 11th grade, and we, go to the parents and say, we are a program that would match your student with a mentor. It's part of a program that everybody in the high school engages in once they reach 11th and 12th grade. And we'd love to match your student with a mentor. So we start out with their consent and really informing them about the program and what it's going to help do. We then invite the parents in for coaching sessions, right? As their students are meeting their mentors and they're in their pair meetings, as we call them, we invite parents to come in for specific ones so they can meet the mentor, and that there can be a connection between the mentor, the mentee, and the family. And we usually see that begin to sort of take off, right, as a real critical jumping off point. A lot of our mentors attend high school graduations, so we see all these wonderful pictures that we end up getting back of the mentor, the mentee, and the family. Um, and We have seen time and time again when there are, say, a mentee and a mentor haven't been in touch, the family reaches out to us to say, hey, we're looking for our student can't find their mentor, like we don't have their phone number, they don't have their email, can you help us get reconnected? Or most recently there was a student that was sick, and fortunately they were in the hospital, and so it's the family that was reaching out, like their mentor has to be crazy right now because the student's been in the hospital for a minute. And they contact us. How can we get in touch with him to let him know that our son is okay, right? So there's definitely relationships that build, and it becomes, I think, extended family in many cases, with working with families and siblings. And so we've seen the relationships that young people have grow by virtue of having that mentor, and we see families sort of adopt and embrace them. Initially, of course, cautiously, but like, okay, I want to understand what this is and what this person, will do. But then ultimately, it becomes just another part of the family, I think, in many cases.
Yeah, I was thinking that there may be like that initial kind of like, who are you or what do you want with my kid? Um, but it sounds that through just steady kind of communication, it tends to work out.
Yes, yes. I mean, I remember taking my mentee to Syracuse. She wanted to see Syracuse in the junior summer, yeah, summer of her junior year before applying. And so um, her father was like, okay, I know you're going on public transportation. I'm okay with this, but I want to make sure that she returns home. I said, sir, I'm going to make sure she she gets to exactly where we're going to be, and then we're going to bring her exactly back home to you, the
Mhm,
same way that she left. So there definitely does tend to be, some parents that are like, okay, I'm just trying to figure out, is this okay? Is this legit? And they know we do background checks and all of those things, but they're still concerned about their young people, and who they're exposed to and how the relationship is going to work. We
mhm,
also, I think, find sometimes families are not comfortable with their students going away to higher education, right? So we're
mhm,
also working sometimes with mentors to say, we value the family as students are making post-secondary decisions. We want those to be done in concert with the family. And so as the family is, maybe very much wanting their students to go to an HBCU or an HSI, we want to be able to sort of consider the family's wishes and ambitions for their student. And that's a part of the consideration and part of the work as the
mhm.
mentor, to help that student make the right choice for them.
Heather, you said what we're talking about in a mentor. I just wanted to say this thought. There's a lot of parallels between. So I've my entire life I've been a student athlete. I played basketball at Rutgers Camden. I've coached for a little bit, and you mentioned it earlier about this idea of coaching, but there's a lot of parallels between what iMentor is doing and coaching. Right. And I think back to my high school experience, especially when I was entering this period of, okay, I'm getting recruited by a school in Maryland. Do I really want to go to Maryland? I'm getting recruited by a school that was in Ohio. I didn't want to go to Ohio because I didn't know what was in Ohio. I heard
Right,
it was
right.
just a bunch of farms. And I remember exactly what my high school coach was telling me to do. So just be smart, right? And he was kind of like my mentor before, like this idea of having an actual mentor. I just thought, oh, this is Coach Wayne, right? Like this is just Coach Wayne. And but looking back at it, I just see the parallels between it. And I was wondering, like, do you see any success in like that were people who are student athletes in these roles, or this? I don't know if you have any, but I was just curious while you were talking.
Yeah, I don't, we don't, we do are able to track and look at if we have student athletes, but we haven't had anything specific to them. I think we have thought about, and I think are in conversation with some HBCUs and their student athletes, and thinking about how we could build some male mentoring relationships to support students in some HBCUs in North Carolina. So I think we are starting having conversations about what that could look like. So it's funny that you raise it, because it has been a area that we haven't really tracked and looked at. But as we're talking with colleges, it's one that has come up as a possibility for bringing mentoring on as a key component of that. So
That's great. That's great.
but like you said, I think it is coaching, right? There is like a lot to it that is sort of coaching and kind of encouraging, pushing, standing in the gap, questioning, right? That coaches do.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, if you could kind of snap your fingers and higher education recognizes your organization in a certain way, and the role that you play for students, particularly first generation students, students from under-resourced backgrounds, um, what would that look like? What would that, or would it just look like how it is now?
No, no, no. I would say what we have now does not work, right? Like, I mean, we can have another conversation all about like these systems, right? And like,
Oh no, don't
right,
say
right,
systems.
whether they work for everybody. So
Yeah.
no, I would say I do think for every student that could possibly want a mentor, I feel like every student could benefit by having one. I think I would want um, for every student to have a one-on-one person, right? To be able to start off college with feeling like they've got their person to help them navigate that process. And so if higher education were to recognize us to do that, I would love it. I think there's so many different ways that we could partner very seamlessly with higher education, with thinking about internships, thinking about
Mhm.
helping students with that first job, and building connections with how mentors who really are coaches and champions while students are going through this post-secondary experience, but are also sites for social capital and building a student social networks, right? It is as we say, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And so it becomes really, really important to have sponsorship, right? Folks that can not just mentor you, but to sponsor you as well. And so I would want students to have that one-on-one, so that then they learn the value of mentorship and then are able to also find sponsors that can help them as they move out of post-secondary and navigate and land that first job. And so I know there are wonderful, organizations and others that are thinking about that challenge as well. But I just think there's so much opportunity for higher education and mentors to think about as we think about work and the future of career connected learning, and what we're doing there to really have mentors be a part of that solution.
All right. Well, I think I'm out of questions and conversation. What you got, Gavin?
I don't have anything besides that. I want to say thank you again, because I think that extremely important that we're having these conversations. Marcus, who currently works in higher education, I'll be done my degree in 2 weeks. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And you work in a space that you're trying to get people into higher education. And I think that even if it's not in this podcast, like we have to continue to have these conversations just to get the wheels turning on every aspect, student, faculty, and mentors. So again, thank you, because this was better than I could have expected.
Oh,
honest.
well, that's so wonderful, and I've enjoyed this conversation. And I think I would just say to uh, your listeners, like if folks feel inspired by iMentor's mission to really support the next generation through mentorship, find a place where you can mentor. We are, of course, in New York, Baltimore, and Chicago, but I hope your listeners will consider volunteering to mentor a young person, because I think that makes all the difference in a young person's trajectory into and through higher education. I want there to be more graduates like you, Gavin. So,
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great conversation. This was Dr. Heather Wathington. She is doing great things, and you heard her. Become a mentor. And if you're on the younger side, get a mentor. And there you go. And then we've done our job if you do that. Okay. All right. So any last words?
Nope, we're all good. See you next episode.
uh,
All right.
bye.
Take
Thank you for
care.
having me.